Imagine walking through the streets of Jerusalem today, surrounded by ancient stone walls and the echo of prayers from three of the world's great religions. Now imagine that beneath your feet, hidden under centuries of dust and debris, lie entire cities. Not ruins scattered across a landscape, but complete underground worlds, streets where children once played, markets where merchants haggled, tunnels where soldiers marched to war, and homes where families lived and died, now frozen in time beneath the modern city. This isn't the plot of an adventure film. This is Jerusalem's secret, a truth more remarkable than fiction. For 3,000 years, civilizations have built upon civilizations here, creating a vertical maze of history that descends into darkness, layer upon layer, waiting to tell its stories. Most people think of Jerusalem as a city of surface landmarks, the Western Wall, the Dome of the Rock, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But the real Jerusalem, the complete Jerusalem, exists in dimensions most visitors never see. Archaeologists estimate that the average street level in the Old City sits between 20 and 40 feet above where people walked in biblical times. Think about that for a moment. For stories of history, compressed and buried, holding the fingerprints of Canaanites, Israelites, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, Muslims, Crusaders, Ottomans, and dozens of other peoples who called this place home. Every invasion, every conquest, every fire and earthquake added another layer to this archaeological layer cake. The city literally rose from its own ashes again and again, building higher while the past sank deeper into shadow. The journey underground begins with a tunnel that shouldn't exist. In the 8th century BCE, King Hezekiah of Judah faced an impossible problem. The Assyrian Empire, the superpower of its age, was marching toward Jerusalem with an army that had crushed every kingdom in its path. Hezekiah knew that sieges were won and lost on access to water. Jerusalem had a spring, the Gihon Spring, but it lay outside the city walls, vulnerable and exposed. So Hezekiah ordered his engineers to attempt something audacious, carve a tunnel through solid bedrock to redirect the spring water inside the city walls, to a protected pool. Using only hammers and chisels, working by the dim light of oil lamps, two teams of workers started from opposite ends, chipping away at the limestone, trusting primitive surveying techniques to meet somewhere in the middle. The tunnel winds for over 1,700 feet through the belly of the ancient city. And here's what makes your spine tingle: when those two teams met in the darkness, they were off by less than a foot. You can walk through Hezekiah's tunnel today, wading through cold water that still flows after 27 centuries, your hands touching the same chisel marks those ancient workers left behind. It worked, by the way. The Assyrians besieged Jerusalem but never conquered it. The tunnel saved the city. But Hezekiah's tunnel is just the beginning. Beneath the Temple Mount, the most contested 35 acres on earth, lies a honeycomb of chambers, cisterns, and passageways dating back millennia. Some were hewn by King Solomon's workers 3,000 years ago. Others were carved by Knights Templar searching for holy relics in medieval times. The sheer scale is staggering: massive underground halls that could hold thousands of people, ancient cisterns capable of storing millions of gallons of water, and passages that snake through bedrock in directions archaeologists are still mapping. Much of this subterranean realm remains unexplored, locked away by political and religious sensitivities. What secrets lie in those sealed chambers? What artifacts, what inscriptions, what evidence of the past remains untouched in the darkness? We may never know. Some doors stay closed not because of what we know lies behind them, but because of what we fear might be there. Descend deeper into the Jewish quarter and you'll discover the Cardo, the grand colonnaded street built by the Romans and expanded by the Byzantines. Today, tourists shop in galleries built into ancient arches, but below street level, archaeologists have excavated the original Roman thoroughfare, complete with its massive paving stones worn smooth by centuries of sandals and cart wheels. Standing there, 6 meters below the modern city, you can see the column bases that once supported a magnificent covered colonnade where citizens strolled protected from sun and rain. The Cardo wasn't just a street, it was a statement of imperial power, a declaration that Rome had absorbed Jerusalem into its eternal empire. Walking its length today feels like stepping through a portal. Above you, life continues its modern rhythm. Below, you're standing exactly where a Roman legionnaire might have stood, where Byzantine pilgrims walked toward holy sites, where crusaders later marched in their chain mail. The stone remembers every footfall, even if we've forgotten whose feet they were. The Western Wall tunnels tell an even more intimate story. Most visitors to Jerusalem see only the short section of the Western Wall visible from the plaza above. But that visible section is just a fraction of the wall's total length. Beneath the surface, the wall continues for nearly 500 meters, buried under centuries of construction and destruction. Walking through these tunnels is like traveling backward through time. You pass Mamluk arches, Byzantine water channels, Roman pavement, and finally reach stones so massive and precisely cut that they defy belief. One block, known as the Western Stone, weighs an estimated 570 tons. 570 tons. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the weight of 3 Boeing 747 aircraft. Moved without cranes, without engines, without any of the technology we consider essential for such work. The ancient engineers didn't just place these stones, they fitted them so perfectly that you can't slide a blade between them. Stand before these stones and you feel the weight of history in more than metaphor. You feel the ambition, the skill, the sheer determination of people who believed they were building something eternal. They were right. But Jerusalem's underground isn't only about grand monuments and royal projects. Some of the most poignant discoveries are achingly personal. In excavations throughout the city, archaeologists have uncovered houses, actual homes where real families lived. In one first-century Jewish home, preserved under ash from the Roman destruction in 70 CE, they found dinner plates still on a table, cooking pots in a kitchen, stone vessels used for ritual purity, and in one corner, an arm from a young woman, reaching upward as if grasping for salvation that never came. That frozen moment speaks louder than any history book. These weren't just ancient people, they were human beings with hopes and fears, people who ate meals and laughed and worried about their children and never imagined their homes would become museums 20 centuries later. The underground preserves not just stone and pottery but humanity itself, captured in moments of ordinary life and extraordinary catastrophe. The city of David, excavated on a steep hillside just outside the old city walls, reveals Jerusalem's original location before it expanded to encompass Mount Moriah. Here, under protective structures, you can walk through neighborhoods from the Iron Age, the period of the biblical kings. These aren't reconstructions or artists' renderings, these are actual stone houses, streets, and drainage systems used 3,000 years ago. One structure, controversially identified by some archaeologists as King David's Palace, showcases massive walls and a commanding position overlooking the Kidron Valley. Whether it belonged to David himself remains hotly debated, but what's undeniable is that someone powerful lived here, someone who understood the strategic value of this ridge, someone who looked out over the same valley you can still see today. In these excavations, workers found 50 clay seal impressions called bulli, used to seal official documents. Some of these bulli bear names mentioned in the Bible, Jeremiah, Baruch. Whether they're the same individuals we can't say for certain, but the connection between ancient text and physical artifact sends electricity through the historical narrative. These aren't just stories anymore. They're things you can touch. Perhaps the most dramatic discovery came in 2004 when workers repairing a sewage pipe near the Temple Mount accidentally broke through into an underground chamber. What they found stunned even seasoned archaeologists: a Byzantine-era street running directly beneath the Western Wall Plaza, perfectly preserved, with its original paving stones intact. Following this street, excavators uncovered a pilgrimage route from the 1st century, built by Pontius Pilate, that once connected the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. This was the very path Jewish pilgrims would have walked as they ascended to the temple, the route Jesus himself might have taken. The street was buried under debris from the Roman destruction, massive stones from the Temple Mount thrown down by Roman soldiers in 70 CE as they dismantled Herod's magnificent temple, literally crushing Jewish resistance and Jewish hope beneath tons of limestone. Those stones still lie where they fell, a frozen moment of catastrophe. Walking beneath them, you're walking through the aftermath of one of history's most devastating defeats, through the last day of the ancient temple, through the hour when the Roman Empire declared that nothing would remain of Jewish sovereignty, not even the stones themselves. These underground spaces aren't silent museums. They're contested territory where archaeology intersects with politics, religion, and national identity. Every shovel full of dirt, every stone uncovered, every inscription deciphered becomes ammunition in contemporary debates about who belongs here, whose ancestors lived here, whose claim to the land above is validated by the land below. The archaeology of Jerusalem isn't neutral, it can't be. How do you excavate the foundations of your enemy's claim? How do you preserve evidence that challenges your own narrative? The underground forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, that this place has always been shared, always been conquered, always been rebuilt by someone new who believed they would be the last, the permanent, the eternal inhabitants. Jerusalem's underground is a humbling place. It whispers that every empire believes it will last forever, and every empire becomes buried beneath the next. Water systems thread through Jerusalem's underground like veins through a body. Beyond Hezekiah's tunnel, archaeologists have discovered Bronze Age water shafts, Roman aqueducts, Byzantine cisterns, and medieval reservoirs. Water was life, and controlling water was power. The Warren's shaft system, predating Hezekiah by centuries, allowed ancient Jerusalemites to access the Gihon spring from inside the city walls through a vertical shaft and sloping tunnel. Recent research suggests it might not have been for water collection as originally thought but rather part of a more complex system, perhaps even connected to ancient religious rituals. This uncertainty is important. It reminds us that for all we've discovered, the underground still guards its secrets. We're visitors reading a language we only partially understand, interpreting evidence through our modern eyes, knowing that future archaeologists might look at our conclusions and shake their heads at what we missed. The underground also preserves Jerusalem's multicultural reality in stone. Muslim-era structures sit directly atop Byzantine churches, which were built over Roman temples, which covered Jewish ritual baths. In some excavations, you can see 5 or 6 distinct civilizational layers in a single exposed wall, each culture adding their signature to the stone, none of them erasing what came before, merely covering it, waiting for time or archaeology to reveal the truth. There's something profound in that, the way history doesn't erase history but accumulates, the way the past doesn't disappear but descends, becomes foundation, becomes the bedrock upon which the present builds. Maybe that's the real lesson of Jerusalem's underground. We're all building on someone else's foundation, all adding our layer to an ever-growing story, all destined to become, eventually, the ancient past for people yet to be born. As excavations continue, new discoveries emerge regularly. In recent years, archaeologists have uncovered a massive Roman theater, pottery workshops, wine presses, public bathhouses, and even a luxury Roman mansion complete with frescoed walls. Each discovery adds detail to our understanding, but more importantly, each discovery adds humanity. We see not just kings and conquerors but shopkeepers and craftsmen, not just warriors but families, not just the momentous events but the daily routine of life lived in the shadow of history. The underground preserves what surface history often forgets, that ordinary people lived through extraordinary times, that behind every siege and conquest were human beings making decisions, feeling fear, choosing courage, trying to protect what they loved. Technology now allows us to explore Jerusalem's underground in ways previous generations couldn't imagine. Ground-penetrating radar maps structures without excavating them. 3-dimensional laser scanning creates digital twins of underground spaces. DNA analysis of ancient remains reveals population movements and connections. Isotope analysis of teeth and bones tells us where people were born, what they ate, how they lived. The underground is being read like a book written in 1,000 different languages, each scientific technique revealing another chapter. And the book keeps getting longer, not shorter, because every answer generates new questions, every discovery reveals how much we still don't know. Standing in Jerusalem's underground, you're simultaneously in the present and the past. Your hands touch walls touched by people separated from you by millennia, yet in that moment, time collapses. The boundary between then and now becomes permeable. You realize that the people who built these tunnels, who lived in these houses, who walked these streets were not fundamentally different from you. They worried about security and water and family and meaning. They laughed and cried and dreamed and struggled. They looked at their children and wondered about the future. They built things hoping to be remembered, and then they were forgotten, until archaeologists brought them back into the light, or perhaps more accurately, brought light down into their darkness. Jerusalem's underground is more than archaeology. It's memory made tangible. It's proof that nothing is truly lost, that the past remains always present, just beneath the surface, waiting. It challenges our certainty, complicates our narratives, and reminds us that the story of any place is always deeper, always more complex, always more human than we initially imagine. Every city has a past, but Jerusalem's past is accessible, walkable, touchable. You can descend into it, wade through it, stand within it. You can put your hand on a wall that's held up the weight of 3,000 years. And in that moment, you understand something essential about time and place and memory. Nothing disappears. Everything accumulates. History doesn't march forward leaving nothing behind. It builds downward, creating depth, creating foundation, creating a vast hidden world that supports everything above. Jerusalem's underground isn't just beneath your feet. It's the bedrock of human civilization itself, holding up the weight of our past, our present, and whatever future we choose to build upon it.